Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Battle for Azeroth beta video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Survival Hunter. It is one of the specs that's came along quite a lot, and it's actually worth showing you what it's like again, especially now that the talent tree and the realistic gameplay scenarios that you'll actually experience, they are a lot more solidified than when we first actually took a look at this. But to quickly get you up to speed, really this is throwing most of the Legion survival out the window. It's keeping some of the same fantasy, but it's very different. So to quickly run you through the basics of it, I'm first just going to select some more simple talents, and let's just run through. So we've got Serpent Sting. 20 focus. As you can see, it's a pretty short duration damage over time for your enemy. And by the way, I'm here in Darnassus because everywhere else is just really crowded. So of course, these target dummies are going to be taking way more damage than normal BFA mob levels. But yeah, you've got Serpent Sting. You want to keep that applied in the target. Then we've got Raptor Strike. It does 1600 damage and it costs 30 focus. We then have Wildfire Bomb, 40-yard range. And it does a bit of upfront damage, but more importantly, it does pretty high damage over time. And then we have Kill Command, which is a little bit different because you've probably noticed there, it doesn't actually do that much damage. It's actually here as a focus generator, and one of the main parts of its gameplay is that it has a 25% chance to immediately reset its cooldown. And really, those four are the core of this spec. So when you're getting into combat, you're maintaining your dots, you're burning through your focus on your Raptor Strikes, you're using your Kill Command on cooldown, and you're just trying to always ensure that, if you do get 2 or 3 procs of that in a row, that you're not going to be overcapping on your focus. And that pretty much is the core of how this plays. It's pretty damn simple, but things get interesting with the talents, and really it's the talents that spurred me on to make this video. Of course, you do have some other cool things, so you're very maneuverable, right? You've got Disengage, we also have Harpoon. So we're very good at getting around the place, and we have Aspect of the Eagle, which is different from when I last talked about it. So when I first covered this, Aspect of the Eagle was also a DPS buff. Well, now we have Coordinated Assault as our main DPS cooldown. You and your pet attack is 1, increasing all damage you both deal by 20%, and while Coordinated Assault is active for that 20 seconds, Kill Command's chance to reset is further increased by 25%, making it a total of 50. Now, Aspect of the Eagle is a 1.5 minute cooldown that just increases the range of your Raptor Strike to 40 yards. That means that you can execute your full DPS rotation while at range, and this is really useful for when, say, the boss charges to the other end of the room or a new pack of mob spawns. Basically, you use this as a downtime reduction tool, and I suppose you do that on top of things like Harpoon and Disengage. But as I said, it really is the talents where this gets cool, so let's just go to the talents. And at the first tier, well, I've actually really enjoyed Terms of Engagement when it comes to world content, because just your Harpoon does more damage, generates focus, and it resets when you kill an enemy, so you're hopping about the place. That's great, but for me, not ideal for other forms of content. We then have Viper's Venom, so Raptor Strike has a chance to make your next Serpent Sting cost no focus and deal an additional 300% initial damage. That is, it's pretty cool in the same way you've got the proc that one of the rogues has, or just any of those, pistol shot style proc things. So it's pretty cool, but, it's not really groundbreaking because unlike, say, a rogue, it doesn't contribute to your resource gameplay. But the one that is cool is Alpha Predator. Kill Command has 2 charges and deals 30% increased damage. This, for me, is great because it's got great synergies, as we're about to find out in this video, and you get a little bit more in terms of your resource management and pooling gameplay with Alpha Predator, and it can interact quite nicely with the cooldown reset mechanic that this has. Now, let's move on to the 30 tier, where things continue to be kind of interesting. So, Guerrilla Tactics. Your Wildfire Bomb has 2 charges, and the initial explosion does 100% increased damage. This is great because of one of my favorite talents in the game, I'd say overall, which is Wildfire Infusion, which we'll cover in a bit. So it's got one awesome synergy there. It also is enjoyable for me for similar reasons to why I like Alpha Predator, in that because you have 2 charges, it now has a bit of a resource mechanic to it. And then, of course, you just have to be sure not to use both charges in a row because you don't want to overlap those dots. And when I actually use this, you're just going to notice that I have little cluster bombs that will fire out of it. Now, those cluster bombs are from my Azerite gear. So that's just an example of what Azeroth gear is sort of doing, but this is very low-end starter Azeroth gear, so it's not really too impactful. We then have Hydra's Bite. Serpent Sting fires 2 arrows at additional enemies near your target, and its dot is increased by 10%. So that's, probably fine. Good if you're going for Viper's Venom, I would imagine. But for me, not mega exciting. And just to show you, like, there's the visuals of that. You're firing off. So it does actually look kind of cool. And then we have Butchery, which is, again, just pretty great. So the damage per focus is actually comparable to Raptor Strike, assuming you're not using Tip of the Spear, which we'll cover in a minute. And, it's because it's working in charges. Once again, like with Alpha Predator and Guerrilla Tactics, you're going to be managing these charges as a resource throughout the fight. You're going to be trying to ensure that maybe if some ads are going to spawn and you'll be able to use Coordinated Assault, that you pop that, and, this is when you get all your butcheries off. So it plays into the actual fight quite well. Then let's just quickly cover the next tier, Trailblazer. Your movement speed is increased by 30% anytime you've not attacked for 3 seconds. In my opinion, pretty boring. I'd rather just have the old aspect of the cheater or something like that. This just feels like a waste of talent to me. There's natural mending. Every 20 focus you spend reduces the remaining cooldown of exhilaration. That's that's pretty cool, I guess. Not major though. I suppose it does mean it'll be more available during a fight. Then there's camouflage, which it's camouflage. I've never really found it that interesting, and I continue not to be a massive fan of it. That said, I'm not a PvPer, and maybe the PvP guys will get a lot more out of this. But let's just move on to tier 4 because it gets kind of cool. So we've got Bloodseeker. Now, Bloodseeker feels the most interactive, especially if you've went for, say, Alpha Predator. So Bloodseeker, your kill command causes the target to bleed over time, and you and your pet gain attack speed for every bleeding enemy within 12 yards. This, of course, encourages you to, attack this guy and then attack this guy. Now, I've got 2 bleeds on, and you can see my attack speed is increased by 20%, which is pretty great. So that's Bloodseeker. We then have Steel Trap. So yeah, this is actually great. So 30-second cooldown, and the core of this is just, it's a really strong bleed that does 5,800 damage baseline. That is great damage for 1 global cooldown. So that's what Steel Trap is. And then there's Murder of Crows. 30 focus does really high damage over 15 seconds. If the target dies while they're under attack, your Murder of Crows cooldown is reset. Honestly, not a big fan of this. I never really have been. A little bit boring, but let's just move on to the next tier. So Born to be Wild, the cooldown of your aspect of the Eagle, Cheetah, and Turtle are reduced by 20%, so I guess that's nice to have. There's Post-Haste. Disengage frees you from movement impairing effects and increases your movement speed by 50% for 4 seconds. Pretty sure this is going to be the one you're going to be going with most of the time. And then there's Binding Shot, which is now a root instead of a stun, which is just reflecting game-wide changes. So I think everyone's losing something here, so relatively speaking, it shouldn't be much of a massive change. Now, let's move on to where things get interesting again. We have Tip of the Spear, and this is essentially another simple little resource mechanic. So what I'm going to do here is just going to burn off all of my focus, as you can see. By the way, I'm just mousing over so you can see the tooltip. I'm not a clicker. So whenever I do kill command, you can see, oh, boom, there's Tip of the Spear. I've just done 2 kill commands. So now my next Raptor Strike will do 30% increased damage. So when you've got that, you want to just, ensure that you're getting as much out of your Raptor Strikes and the efficiency of the focus that you're spending by using this mechanic. So that's pretty cool. Now, if you still want that Legion hotness, you can replace your Raptor Strike with Mongoose Bite. It's a little bit modified to fit into the system of the BFA Survival Hunter, but Brutal Slash deals 906 physical damage, gives you a stack of Mongoose Fury, and you pretty much know where this is going. Each stack of Mongoose Fury increases the damage of Mongoose Bite by 20% for 14 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times, and then successive, attacks do not increase the duration. So, as an example, if I'm using this, I'm probably going to be thinking about my other resource pulling mechanics, right? So, I'll probably just blast through a bunch of these. We'll maybe fire off that kill command proc, which was a little bit tricky because I don't want to cap my focus too much here. But yeah, as you can see, that's something that if you're good at preparing for that, you will end up doing pretty well. So that's a nice little aspect of how Mongoose Bite plays in the BFA system. And then we've got Flanking Strike, which is one of those things where it's a really cool ability on its own, but, well, yeah, let's just get into it. So 15-yard range, which is cool. So as an example, boom, right? Both me and my pet jump towards the target. It's pretty awesome. So yeah, you and your pet leap towards the target, you do a total of 2,500 physical damage, and it generates 30 focus for both you and your pet, so you both get to do some damage. That is really cool as an ability, but it's a 40-second cooldown. It's, you know, it's not great as a closer because you probably already have your harpoon, or maybe just doing it the old-fashioned way with your disengage. So to me, it's like a one-off ability that doesn't really operate great in the broader context of things, where I feel that both Tip of the Spear and Mongoose Bite are a bit more interesting. Okay, so Bird of Prey, Raptor Striking your pet's target extends the duration of your coordinated assault by 1 second. Of course, coordinated assault lasts for 20 seconds by default, so a good player who is maybe doing a good job with, their kill commands, not capping focus, and really getting as many Raptor Strikes off within that window, they will get quite a good bit more out of their coordinated assault. So that's pretty cool. But here's the big one, just one of the coolest talents. Wildfire Infusion. You lace your wildfire bombs with extra reagents, and it basically randomly gives you effect every time you throw it. That seems annoying, but the way that it works is actually, if you look at the tooltip here, right now it's a shrapnel bomb. And whenever I use that shrapnel bomb, it's now a volatile bomb. And if you actually look at their icons, they are different. So that shouldn't be too bad to track. Let's cover how these bombs work. So shrapnel bomb. Shrapnel pierces the target, which causes your Raptor Strike and Butchery to apply a bleed for 9 seconds that stacks up to 3 times. So that's a great synergy with your Butchery if you're in an AoE situation. However, it is, of course, something that you can't really prepare for. You've got Pheromone Bomb, so Kill Command has a 100% chance to reset against targets coated with pheromones. So let's see, right now I've got a shrapnel bomb, so I'll just show you what that's like. If you look at this target, I'm just going to do 3 Raptor Strikes, and that's given them this internal bleeding, which is from the shrapnel bomb. Now my next one is a pheromone bomb, so once I use that, you can see I have a 100% proc rate for my kill commands, so you can just, overcap focus, and you'll pretty much always be left, after the duration of that with full charges of kill command. It's giving me a shrapnel bomb again, and yeah, now it's giving me the volatile bomb. So the volatile bomb just does extra damage for targets who are affected by Serpent Sting. So if I use that, you can see a little bit more damage, and also refreshes Serpent Sting. What's nice about this is that yes, there's randomness involved, but it's kind of predictable randomness in that you know what's going to happen in advance, and that means you're always dynamically replanning what you're doing with your other abilities. So it's nice in that it takes a set of abilities and makes them all more interesting, and it's got a great synergy with so many other things, like potentially your Butchery or your Guerrilla Tactics, and just giving you the charges of the Wildfire Bomb, and then your Alpha Predator. I think it's a really, really cool talent. It just does a lot of gameplay in one talent, essentially. And then there's Chakrams. So you throw a pair of Chakrams at the target, you slice all enemies with them, and, they'll then travel back to you. So if I do that, does a bunch of damage, then returns back to me and does more damage to its primary target, and it's on a 20-second cooldown. And then just another thing that I kind of experienced while I was testing, this character is a Void Elf. It's kind of cool, right? Like, I can, throw my little rift thingy, I can then teleport to it and harpoon straight in, which in a PvP situation, if I have terms of engagement, that's some mighty, mighty fine shenanigans. But let's just talk about some thoughts. So I think this feels a bit slow and simple if you don't have Alpha Predator, and for me, I would default to Guerrilla Tactics and Wildfire Infusion in most situations if I was going purely off the gameplay fun. Now, Butchery is super fun for many fights, just depending on the fight. So in the cases where I'd be going for Butchery, then it's probably just Butchery and Chakrams. Now, Mongoose Bite and Tip of the Spear, both, I think they feel far better if you're using the Alpha Predator talent. And when you look at the rest of Tier 1, the Tier 1 talents don't fit into the rotation that well. They're kind of fine one-offs, but to me, the game's just a bit too slow and simple without them. But I suppose they probably are there to be just a more, chilled out option to roll with. Now, really, the reason why I like Alpha Predator and the 2 charges of a kill command is it basically just gives you a little bit more resource gameplay. So as an example, there's also just some more leeway. Like if I wanted to say be spreading some wildfire bombs and maybe spreading my regular dots in an AoE situation, well, assuming I'd already used both of my kill commands, because it's a charge system that goes up to 2, it just gives me a bit more leeway. And then also because it's charges, I can, better prepare for maybe a coordinated assault or something like that. So that's why I like that mechanic. And it also fits in way better with, say, a Mongoose Bite, where you really do want to be thinking about your resource generation. Overall, though, I'd say that the Guerrilla Tactics and Wildfire Infusion is my preference outside of that, kill command gameplay from Alpha Predator. Now, of course, the kill command stuff does combo quite nicely with the wildfire grenades, which is pretty fun. And then, as I mentioned, butchery and chakrams, they are really fun in specific situations where it is acceptable to be rolling with a build that is less fun in a single target scenario, but is more fun in the context of dealing with trash packs and boss like ad spawn timings and that kind of thing. So that's pretty much it for this quick overview of what's going on with Survival Hunter. I really enjoy it, actually. I was a little bit skeptical, so I knew that I liked the fantasy of being a sort of a ranged melee hybrid, but I wasn't really sure if they were going to nail the mechanics. Well, I know this much. There are talent builds in here that I have loved playing on the alpha. Of course, there's always the worry that, there's a talent build that you really enjoy playing. What if it's trash and you have to play one that you don't really enjoy playing? That's always a bit of a concern, but the talent builds that I enjoy playing seem to be the ones that are designed for raid and dungeon players and not really for world content, so I'm pretty much okay with them. And that pretty much is it for my thoughts on the Survival Hunter. Overall, it's getting a good old thumbs up, which is definitely nice to see. So thank you very much for watching this video, and I will see you next time.